Welcome back to Play Tessie. If you're listening on drop day, it is February 26th, and this is episode 44, the Kyle Bearclaw episode.
Oh,
okay, fine. I got another one. I got another one for you. One that you guys will like more. The Vicente Padilla episode.
Yeah, Vicente Padilla, Workman, Jason Bay. What are we doing here?
Jake Peavy could be, but Vicente, you can't get better than Padilla.
Wasn't Jackie 44 when he came up? Like his prospect?
I think you're right.
I think
you might be right. I want to say that I saw that, but I can't confirm. But it looks right. It feels right. But this is the official podcast of playing literal baseball games, which happened twice today as we record. So that's freaking cool. Also known as the official Red Sox podcast of WEI. Before we get going, just remember, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. Odyssey app, Apple, Spotify. Hit us up on YouTube. We got a Play Tessie playlist in the WEI page. So hit us up there and hit that thumbs up button. Drop a comment. Helps us out a lot. And obviously subscribing helps you out a lot. Coop's got Jackie Bradley up here. Yes. Number 44.
Oh,
Sammy?
my God. Dude, if my brain could do this for stuff that actually matters in real life, I would be like a billionaire. But instead, I'm podcasting with you, lovely gentlemen, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I've said that so many times in my life.
Was Mark Melanson 44?
Yes.
Oh God, that one I can't. I can't picture him in a Sox uniform.
No, he was 44 for a different team. I think he was like, hold on,
36. It might have been 36.
37 is my Mark Melanson guess. Coop, can you pull that one up?
I'm gonna pull up. I was saving this for enough said, but because this is technically the Vicente Padilla episode, I'm just gonna say it here because I found when I was looking him up like a way back when we were talking about random Red Sox players, and I found a headline in CBS News. Red Sox pitcher Vicente Padilla tells Yankees star Mark Teixeira that he should play a women's sport.
Oh, that's not
I can't
cool.
imagine them having beef.
Not cool, Vicente. Very sexist of you, but also
very sexist, Vicente.
This is the second time I get to mention that. Oh, this Mark Melanson.
43. Damn.
43.
We struck out. Second time I've got to mention this on the podcast, but in case you missed it the first time, Padilla had his version of the eephus pitch, which he called the soap bubble, which I think is great because, when the little soap and there's a little bubble that goes over the bubble and it goes, makes that noise.
Oh, yeah. We've all heard that noise before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Red Sox.
But before we get going, hit us up on socials. Follow us, Twitter, @PlayTessie, Instagram, also @PlayTessie. As you can hear, I'm here with Sammy and Pat. We've got Coop behind the scenes, but we'll jump right in today. It's like a lot of little things happened since we last recorded. Nothing major Red Sox-wise, but like little things that could have implications Red Sox-wise. And one of the interesting things was said, it was said sometime during the weekend. It might have been on Saturday morning. But Cora was talking a little bit about the rotation, which obviously has been the biggest topic of discussion on Red Sox Twitter among anyone who's talking Red Sox all offseason has been talking about the starting rotation. And we went from hoping that they're going to get two aces to, oh my God, just get Yamamoto to, oh my God, just get a controllable guy that can grow with Bayo to, oh my God, just build a complete rotation. And we've got Cora's first indication as to what the rotation could look like. He said that in the rotation is going to be Giolito, Pivetta, Bayo, and that Cutter Crawford has a leg up on the others. And that he didn't say anything beyond that, but then later on he said that Tanner Houck has added the most velocity of any pitcher in camp, which I would take to mean is Tanner Houck having a leg up on the fifth spot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Houck should have a leg up on the fifth spot as well. I think that if you go back and watch Houck's starts last year, 2023, it's not really like you can't look at his starts and say he's not good enough to be a starter. You look at them and you go, okay, once in a while he'll have a blow up start. And maybe it's more than once in a while. He's a young guy, but he has those blow up starts, which skew the numbers. So people, naturally, and I don't blame anyone who does this, they don't want him to start. It's not my preference either, but that's kind of where we're at. So I get that. I think he should have a leg up. as for Cutter Crawford, I don't really know what that means to have a leg up. I guess that it can only be a good thing that he has a leg up. We saw him run out of gas a little bit last year. We also saw him have the best season of his career last year. So, I'm trying to get myself into a headspace where I'm not really lamenting what they haven't done and more so looking forward to what they do have, the Red Sox, I mean. So Houck and Crawford developing as starters, I'm excited to see how that goes. And it looks like it's off to a good start by all accounts.
I fucking hate it here, man.
What a follow-up.
I mean, I kind of agree with Sammy. I think Houck's stuff should absolutely play as a starter. I don't think he's a starter. Him and Whitlock, I think they are so great out of the bullpen that the more you kind of take them out of what they're really, really good at and try and mess around and make them starters and it doesn't work, I can't imagine that's great on the confidence going back to the bullpen. After you fail as a starter once, twice, this would be 3 times for Houck. Like, it's hard. It sucks. But I think Cutter should absolutely be in the rotation. If this is the final product, if this is the rotation they have, Cutter should obviously be number 4. And I would lean Houck over Whitlock, in terms of starting pitching.
But is it really fair to call Houck a failed starter? I mean,
I was about to say that same thing.
Like, you could look at someone like Rafael Devers and say he's not a good third baseman. We have over 7,000 innings of proof. And you go to someone like Tanner Houck, like how many here? I'll check really quick, but he hasn't started that many games. I feel like what we saw last year, it wasn't great, but it wasn't like Winkowski the year that he tried to be a starter. That was really
5 ERA last year.
Well, here's the thing. We see guys like Houck and Whitlock, and we almost forget what it's like because we haven't seen that many Red Sox starters that start like a full season and are legitimately bad start to finish. Like, there are teams that have like Jordan Lyles last year. Pretty much every time he went out there was just he was gonna stink. Like, but with Tanner Houck and like Sammy, you alluded to this. Like, Houck went out there and was like pretty good a lot of the time. Like, obviously it's well documented that he had issues going beyond 5 innings, going through the third, going through the order 3 times. And honestly, I don't think necessarily that added velocity is going to solve that. Like, that's something that's more so solvable if he were to add a third pitch that he's really confident in, which we haven't heard much about. So like, we'll see on that. But yeah, I wouldn't call him a failed starter. I wouldn't call Whitlock a failed starter either, just because both of them have shown a lot of flashes. It's just consistency, which is something we see in young starters all the time. They put together really good work, and then it kind of like a couple of bad starts bomb their ERAs, but like overall, like you can kind of see it. And you can see it with these guys. I had just hoped that we weren't at that point where we were going to continue experimenting because, 2024, once again, you're going to be experimenting.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how it starts for the most part last year, it's kind of like 5 innings, 3 earned runs, which is not great. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's great. That's not a quality start, which is 6 innings, 3 earned runs. But it's manageable when you have a good offense, especially for a young guy that's going to be your 5th starter. I mean, look at his April. He's got a 4.5 ERA on the dot with a 4.06 FIP. That's pretty solid. That's not bad at all. 4.06 FIP. And then his next start, he just blows up. 6 innings, 6 earned runs. ERA is up to 5.3. FIP is up to 4.3. And then he slowly brings it back down. And then he gets another blow up start the following. It's just kind of like, I agree it wasn't a great showing overall. But if you go game by game, it's a lot more encouraging. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. Game by game. And you feel it when you watch all the games too. Like, you can see it. Like, I remember I want to say it was like the week. Did they have like a couple of series close together against the Yankees and he pitched really well against them and then came back the next start against them and that's when he got hit in the face? Do I have that right?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Yes.
So he actually did well against. You're talking about, in June.
He pitched well.
They had 2 out of their 3 series. So he pitched first game 6 innings, 2 earned runs. So that's a good game. And then 4 innings, 1 earned run. I think that's when he got hit.
That's when he got hit.
So
and I remember,
aside from the the injury. But yeah, I didn't even mention that. That's a huge part that we have to factor in, because if you look at him after that game, yeah, he just wasn't.
You got to get built back up. Like it's a whole process. As a starting pitcher, getting hurt in the middle of the season for an extended period of time absolutely sucks, because with position players, it's like you recover from your injury, you get a few games in, and you're back at it. With these starters, it's like you got to build yourself back up. And like Whitlock, when he came back last year, didn't even bother building himself back up. They needed him so badly that they just brought him back and told him, like, you're going to pitch out of the bullpen.
Man, I was feeling so good about Whitlock after a few starts. He started pitching backwards, which, if you're not aware what that is kind of pitching off of the changeup. So the changeup was like his main pitch for a little bit, and it looked so nasty. And then the fastball would be like 94-ish, 93, not his max. And it looks so good. And then the wheels kind of just came off. But yeah, I wouldn't call either a failed starter. I might be wrong. I feel like Whitlock has had more opportunity than Houck, so I'm more inclined to go with Houck. Also, just like Whitlock in the bullpen is, oh my God. He was closing games in 2021. So
I think they could both be that. I think they would both be that good in the bullpen. And we'll get into this later, but if you could come up with a way to have them both in the bullpen.
Well, okay, can I pose a question? Quick question, and I mentioned this the other day to you guys. All right. What would you rather? Who do you think you're going to get more out of, actually? Tanner Houck as your fifth starter, or Michael Lorenzen as your fifth starter?
Is this a trick question?
No, I'm serious. And I think this is how the Red Sox are looking at it. If they're not going to get Montgomery, what is the point of signing a guy like Lorenzen when you already have a guy in-house who could give you similar numbers? And even if Lorenzen is, slightly better, is that really worth bringing in another guy?
I'll give you two answers to it, Sammy. The reason I would do it, A, is it adds depth to your bullpen. Like, you could either trade Jansen because you now have depth there, or now Lorenzen is giving you like reasonable. I don't know. Who knows how good he's going to be, but he's giving you reasonable starts. You can expect that. And now you've got a good reliever in the bullpen in Houck. And if you're not good, you could trade Lorenzen, and then Houck is starting in the second half. So, like, I understand where you're coming from there, because yes, like if you're just looking at it, who is going to be the better starting pitcher this year if they have the full opportunity to do it? Yeah, I don't think Lorenzen is any guarantee to be that much better than Houck, if better at all. So I get where you're coming from there, but I just think like adding depth to the organization helps you win games, and if you're not winning games, you trade it.
Yeah, I think Lorenzen, I think at this point they're probably pretty equal in terms of what you can expect out of them in like a starting role. But the one thing that it would enable them to do is kind of flip-flop between the two as like a piggyback, kind of like what Philly did with Lorenzen and Matt Strom last year. Like, those are two guys that could play really well off each other. I wouldn't necessarily trust either taking a full starter workload over the course of like a full season.
Yeah.
I have a question. I post this on Twitter, and I don't know the exact numbers of the results, but I know the order. If you guys had to pick, just assuming no more additions, that last fifth starter spot is down to Whitlock, Houck, Winkowski.
Oh, easy.
Give me the order. I only asked people on Twitter. Okay. Pat, you go first. What do you got?
Winkowski, Houck, Whitlock.
You would start Winkowski.
Yeah, I think his stuff is very playable as a starter.
Wow. Okay, I'm the exact opposite. I'm Houck, Whitlock, Winkowski. I don't want Winkowski was awful as a starter in 2022, and the reason I say this, I have an actual reason other than like he wasn't good. His velocity ticked up big time, big time in the bullpen. Like, it was night and day. He looked like a complete different pitcher. So that's not to say like, the pitch. What's the new name for the run prevention team?
Run prevention team.
They're calling him the run prevention. The run prevention unit, whatever they're called. I would like, it would be cool to see Winkowski in that, but he is by far my third choice there. I'd rather see them run it back with Whitlock or Houck than Winkowski.
So Pat took Winkowski. Sammy, you took Houck. This isn't just us doing some shit where we're just like, oh, we'll each make an argument for one of them. Like, I would take Whitlock. So we all have we all have different answers. I would go Whitlock, Houck, Winkowski, and I have Whitlock and Houck pretty close together. If only because that Houck increasing his velocity comment gets me a little excited, and I thought Whitlock looked okay in his start. Like he had a not very good first inning, allowed the homer to Adley Rutschman, allowed a lot of hard contact, hard line out to center, deep fly out to the warning track. Got the final guy, to a 2-strike count and had a little bit of trouble putting him away. The changeup didn't quite look like what it was when he was dominant his first couple of years. Obviously, first start of spring training, so like I'm not going to read too much into it, but like it swayed me a little bit, but not enough to change my decision. Whitlock has got 3+ pitches that he can pull out, and that is something that we have not seen. And with Winkowski, to your just to like go against you a little bit here, Pat. I need to see Winkowski maintain that 96+ velocity throughout like 5, 6, 7 innings before I'm willing to consider him there. Because that's what made him such an effective reliever. Like he was gunning it up to like 98, 99 at times. And when he was starting, I want to say that was sitting like 91, 92.
Yeah. Gordo, also, it goes back to what you said when I mentioned Houck as a starter. Winkowski in the bullpen helps the bullpen, which helps the starters, which helps everybody. He was a multi-inning guy last year, and he was a guy that I really didn't expect much from in 2023, and he really made an impact.
Yeah.
Where would that team be? Remember how bad that bullpen fizzled out the last 2 months of the season? Could you imagine if they didn't have Winkowski in there shutting shit down? And I know he had his struggles. He had that mid-season lull where, the velocity dipped down a little bit and he was getting hit, but I really like that guy in the bullpen. And you could say this, it's funny, we're having this debate, but you could really make the same argument about 3 guys. And it makes sense because we all 3 picked a different person. But yeah, for me, I really like Winkowski in the bullpen. The velocity uptick is what really gets me.
Okay, wait, quick question before we move on. I think I know the answers to this from both of you guys, but I want to ask it anyway. Would you put any of those 3 guys in AAA as starter depth?
No.
As starting depth?
Yes. Like keep one of them stretched out and starting in AAA so that if someone gets hurt, they can come up and kind of fit in seamlessly in the rotation, and you don't have to like.
Could you imagine that conversation with one of those 3?
I know.
You're so good. We're putting you in AAA.
Yeah, that's just not. I could see it happening, though. I wouldn't do it, but I could see it happening. Can you imagine, hey, Josh Winkowski, we know you pitched 84 innings out of the bullpen with an ERA below 3. We're going to start you in AAA, though. And I know it's to get him a bigger role down the road, but like, no.
I wouldn't do it either. No, we're 0 for 3 on that one. We're 0 for 3 on that one. I think that the way that comes across, obviously to the guy, unless the guy's on board with it and the guy like suggests that he wants to stay stretched out, in which case, like I guess, but the way that comes across to the pitcher is you're holding me back. The way that comes across to the team is we've got talented pitchers that could be helping this team win, but this is yet again you focusing on the future, not focusing on the present. So yeah, I think it sends a bad message. Obviously, like we know that this team is focusing a little bit on 2025 and beyond, but you got to at least give them a shot in 24.
It's also worth noting that Winkowski is pre-ARB right now. So in 2026, he's going to be ARB eligible. So if he says no to this demotion or he pushes back on the promotion, then it gets to arbitration in a few years. You just know the Red Sox are going to be like, we tried to turn you into a starter, but you didn't want to take that extra step. So that's the gross part of baseball, but we should definitely, you got to take that into account. Could be used against him.
So we just debated which one of Winkowski, Whitlock, and Houck we would start, right? What if I told you that as currently constructed in terms of guys under contract, what if I told you those 3 made up 3/5 of your rotation next year?
Oh, boy.
For shits and gigs, I kind of went through and just wrote out kind of what a roster would look like. Rotation as of now, next year, and this is assuming Giolito opts out and Pivetta leaves, which I think are both realistic. Bayo, Crawford, Houck, Whitlock, Winkowski. That is your starting rotation. The bullpen loses Kenley, and Chris Martin, as well as, if we want to call it, Cooper Criswell. The bullpen is now Brendan Bernardino, Chris Murphy, Weissert, Kelly, Campbell, Jakes, Mata, Fulmer, Hendricks.
Oh my God, Coop, can you just delete this whole segment? This is painful.
So the pitching side of things, I want to fucking die.
I muted him. I couldn't take that anymore. I can't do that. That's miserable right there.
For talking about the outlook.
Holy moly!
Look,
But
oh my
Pat,
Yeah, no, you're muted, Pat. I control you.
oh.
Pat did too. He flew too close to the sun.
Yeah,
Oh
that was
my
all right. I'm
There's
gonna
great
unmute you
news.
now. Oh,
There's
God.
great news.
He figured it out.
Oh,
The
hold on.
Position
That-
player pool, way too stacked, like way too logjam.
Good.
This is also assuming that Mayer, Teal, and Anthony are up next year, which I feel like they should be. Catcher, you have Teal and Wong. First base, Casas. Between second base and shortstop, you have Vaughn Grissom, Trevor Story, Marcelo Meyer, New York. Outfield / DH, really. You have Duran, Anthony, Abreu, Yoshida, Rafaela, Refsnyder. Then you also have, Devers, all of that. That is so many players for 9 positions. They have to make trades to kind of shore that up. One thing that's going completely overlooked, 1 year from now, if Mayer comes up, what happens with Vaughn Grissom? Does Vaughn go to third? Rafi DHs. Does Vaughn go to left field because he can play left field? Is Vaughn now a super utility guy like he was in Atlanta? That's something that's like,
It has to be decided.
yes.
And
I think
But-
Go ahead, Gordo.
I was going to say, I think this is why they were so open earlier in the offseason about the need. Like Breslow basically said it. He's like, our young offensive players are way ahead of our young pitchers, and we need to make moves to balance that out. And it's quite frankly something they never ended up doing. And I don't think that's due to lack of trying, but like it's something that, like Pat, you just listed it out. If they don't do it, and like obviously in the scenario you just listed out, they have let a lot of money go off the books without adding any back. But like that's where the roster is going to be as we start the offseason. And it's clear that without making those trades that realign the organization, you are now, how many outfielders did you just list? Like 6 or 7?
As of now, it's Duran, Anthony, Abreu, Yoshida, Rafaela, Refsnyder.
So we got 6 outfielders, and whatever, one can play DH, whatever. And then you've got the Grissom question is interesting, Pat, because if you asked me today if what the plan would be, I would say the super utility thing is kind of by default what you have to do, because Marcelo Meyer is like your blue chip guy. You're not like, okay, you know what? No, Sammy, you had it. We talked about this briefly. You had a good idea. I want to let you make that point.
Okay, question. Do we all kind of agree that Rafael Devers, despite the defensive issues, will probably be the third baseman, not the DH or first baseman, for the next 3 to 5 years?
Unless they get Bregman next year, yes.
I think yes.
Then I really don't know what you do with Meyer, because in my head, I would be fine with move Rafi to DH. I've said this a million times. I think that's where he should be. We won't go over that now. Move him to DH. You bring up Meyer, have him play third base, just like they did with Xander Bogaerts. Now, granted, I wouldn't want them to go third base, shortstop. Kind of messed up Xander at the beginning there, but that's one route they could take. I think not the most obvious, but one that makes sense. You have a lot of hitting talent in the minors, like both Gordo and Pat just spoke about. You don't have much pitching talent. The hitting talent is ahead of the pitching talent that it's outnumbering. You could swing him for a pitcher, man. I mean, we talked about that for months at the beginning of the offseason. That's the kind of guy like Marcelo Meyer. Now, I don't think it would have made sense to include him in a trade this year because he's coming off of a kind of sort of lost season where he tried to play through an injury. I don't think anybody worth listening to thinks he's a bust, but you'd still be selling lower than you have to. So say he bounces back. He's still incredibly young, has a good season in AA, maybe comes up to AAA. That is when you look to move a guy for a pitcher, a real pitcher. We're not talking like a Jordan Lyles, though we love Jordan Lyles.
God.
We're talking like Luzardo type, like a number one caliber starting pitcher. So it's a good problem to have. It's a problem, but it's a good problem to have. You have too much offensive talent. I don't know if you want to say this is a good thing. You have a glaring need that you could flip that offensive talent for. So at the very least, they have some options. I'd rather this than like, who are we filling the roster out?
Yes. Sammy,
So,
it's better to have like, and I said this going into this offseason, and like we're still in the same place. So like take it however it's worth. But it's better to have one obvious problem that everyone knows you need to fill, and there's like an obvious way to do it, than like when they were going into the 2023 season and had like holes all across the roster, and Chaim Bloom is saying we need to add 9 players or whatever. Like that is a tough spot to be in, because that's when you start adding a bunch of mid, because you have to spread the money around. But I want to go back to, you were talking about Devers is going to be the third baseman for the next 3 to 5 years or whatever. And I'm very much like a proponent of him being the third baseman. But like obviously this whole conversation is very dependent. Like we need to see how Vaughn Grissom plays, because if Vaughn Grissom is like very average, then like, yeah, he's the utility guy, and like we're all in agreement with that. But if he's really good and he needs to be in the lineup every day and have a position that he's going to play every day, he's become a good defensive second baseman, and maybe he's like your table setter or leadoff hitter. I don't know. If he needs to be in that lineup, I don't think there's anything wrong with moving Devers to DH if you've got mainstays all across the diamond. The reason I'm so against moving Devers to DH is because it hinders roster building. It's much easier to acquire a DH to fill that hole than it is to acquire a third baseman who can play defense and hit.
can I ask a fairly related question? We've talked about this before.
Do it.
So I agree with you. If you do move Devers to DH, it does make roster construction difficult. I think that's a worthwhile trade-off. You don't, that's fine. That said, the reason it makes roster building a little bit more difficult to a larger degree is because there's already a guy on the roster with defensive issues, Masataka Yoshida, who is slated to be the starting DH. So I want to pose this question again that we've already spoken about. Do you guys think the Red Sox have any regrets about signing Yoshida? And let me just say, that is not to say that he's not a good player. I think we all agree he's a good ball player. Not a guy that anyone's like, oh, crap, we got Yoshida on the team. But in terms of roster construction, do you guys think the Red Sox regret signing Yoshida?
Right now, no. Next year, yes. I think
Why is
right now, this year, they're completely comfortable with him being DH, and I don't necessarily blame them. Next year, when you have way too much talent and Yoshida is pretty limited in where he can slot in, as opposed to Duran, who realistically could probably play all 3 outfield positions, Abreu, corner outfielder. Like, you have guys who can kind of move around and they're pretty versatile. Massa is pretty much DH or left field. And when you have that much talent, especially if Rafaela and Anthony are up next year with Duran, you're in really deep in the weeds. Like, at that point, you have to move Massa in order to even build like a competent roster.
And you're probably paying to move Massa at that point.
Yes. So I think right now they are perfectly content paying Massa DH. I'm paying Massa $18 million a year to be a DH this year. Fine, cool. He'll probably hit close to 300. Should I hopefully hit for a little higher on the power numbers? Hopefully he's around like 30-ish, 35 doubles, 20-ish home runs. But next year, I think they're in a world of hurt, because that's a roster spot that they kind of need to get the most versatility out of the guys that should be up.
Sammy, I have a follow-up on this. Who is regretting? Like who? Because I think there's different answers depending on who we're talking about.
Good question. Regretting, I don't know if this is fair, but like Breslow, if
That's fair. Yeah. I get it.
Like, better word would be if he wishes Yoshida was not on the roster, I should say, because he didn't make the move. And then also Cora would be the second guy, because Cora Oh my God. Positional versatility. He likes to move guys around, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Like I mock the positional versatility thing because I think it's a little overstated, but it doesn't mean it's not important. So to answer your question, Breslow and Cora were my main two because it's not really a money thing as much.
Well, okay. I was going to say, basically, I think those guys would rather they have had the ability to spend that money and go short term because, as Pat just pointed out, look at all these guys coming, and that's just next year. Like, we've got Miguel Blaze coming a couple years down the line. Like, there's more outfield coming. So and this was the same reason that I thought that extending Verdugo was never going to be in the cards, because you're committing both of your corner outfield spots and you've got guys coming up. It's like, why do you need it? You can make the argument for Yoshida, but I say that with a but, because if you ask ownership, I think it's not a coincidence that the two guys that they spent on, one is a Dominican, one of them is one of the best Dominican baseball players in the world, and one of them is a Japanese superstar. Like, you're now marketing the Red Sox globally. I don't think that is out of the consideration when they're making these decisions.
Yeah, fair. Fly to Boston to watch us get waxed by the Rays.
I've got a good segue here.
Love segues.
Because I don't even want to say the one guy that the Red Sox still at this point have a chance to sign is not Dominican or Japanese. He's American. And Coop, cue up the audio, Coop, because Craig Breslow hopped on with our buddy Bradfo on the broadcast with Bradfo and Joe Castiglione during the spring training game on Sunday. And Rob asked him about the implications of the Cody Bellinger signing, and Breslow kind of had an interesting response, and I want to play it here.
When you look at the market of these guys, has things changed at all? And we talk about, everyone's different, but do you get the sense that things have changed at all?
Well, I'm not sure we're yet seeing the implications of, Bellinger signing, let's say, and I think a lot has been made of the constraints or parameters that we aren't working under. I think we'll obviously continue to look at every opportunity that's out there to improve the team, while ensuring that we prioritize, kind of the long-term outlook alongside the shorter-term outlook. So I don't know is the short answer, but it would be irresponsible not to.
So the reason I wanted to play that quote was, if you go look at other camps, Farhan Saidi, the whatever the head title is for the Giants, is basically saying, yeah, like, we're probably not adding any more significant pieces. Chris Young, the head guy for the Rangers, is basically saying, yeah, we can't add any more pieces. And then you ask Breslow, and he says something like that. So, Sammy, you hear that quote. Rob posts that on Twitter today. I don't know if you're listening on Radio Live or if you saw it on Twitter, whatever. You hear that quote, what's your first reaction?
You're not going to like this. My first reaction is that is a guy who's new to being in front of the mic. He's only had a few reps. He sounded a little bit nervous, and he was kind of saying a little bit of nothing. Again, I don't read too much into it, and I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me say this, but like, he's just saying nothing. Even at the end, he goes, I don't really know. So it's better than hearing him say, we're done adding. Sure. But it's true. We haven't seen anything happen since Bellinger. It was less than 24 hours ago as we're recording on February 25th. So I don't know. If I were to say that meant something, I feel like I'd be dishonest to you guys. I don't think it means much other than cards are still on the table.
Pat?
Yeah. I think that was like a grand scheme kind of thing. I think he knows that with one of the Boras guys going out, I think he knows that like Monty, Chapman, Snell, Monty, Chapman, Snell, like all those guys. I think he knows that Boras is kind of pushing to get them somewhere before it's like way deep into spring training. But I don't think he necessarily means like, oh, we know something. I think it's more so like holding out hope, essentially, that Monty's price does drop to something a little more reasonable for them. But outside of that, I don't think it was directed at like we know what the fallout's going to be.
Do you guys think he sounds nervous? Because when he,
A
not
little.
all the time, but sometimes when Breslow, like he kind of talks like this, like he talks really fast and he like kind of that sort of thing where he just doesn't sound super polished, and that might just be how he talks. You know, it's not in the job description to be a great orator or anything, but I don't know. He just sounded. Has he ever been on a broadcast like that before? I know it's spring training, but you're with Rob Bradford. He's probably nervous as hell. So,
did you guys know that they talked about this? If you listen to the full recording, did you guys know that Breslow wrote for WEI for like 2 weeks, and technically for that period of time, Bradford was his boss?
Yep.
That's awesome.
No, I'll give you my thoughts on it. I would normally kind of be on your side, Sammy, because I've just sort of been of the mindset for a long time now that this just isn't happening. But you had Bradford report that the Red Sox are prioritizing Monty over other free agent additions, but are waiting for the price to come down. Basically, they're leaving the door open. And Sean McAdam reported that they're not necessarily optimistic that it's going to get done. I think a lot of that ties into what Alex Spear said a few weeks back about they're waiting for the market to potentially crash, but are not necessarily convinced that when that happens, he would come there because he might go to a team that has a better chance to win. But obviously we know that teams and agents leak these things to the media. Maybe that could be Boras leaking to the media that, yeah, you're waiting for the price to come down, but guess what? We're going anywhere but you if it does. But I don't know. I read into it a little bit because it would be incredibly easy to reference how good X, Y, and Z pitchers have looked in spring training and be like, listen, man, like we saw Giolito pitch well today. We saw Bayo pitch well today. Whitlock threw a couple innings. Houck's velocity's up. Like, we're excited to see where this goes. It would be really easy to say that. And he left the door open. So I don't know. I also, for what it's worth, don't think, and we can talk about this a little bit, but Cody Bellinger signs a 3-year, $80 million deal with opt-outs after the first 2 years. I think we all agree that's a Boras L. Like, this is a guy who was initially
Fat L for Boras.
He was seeking $240 million when the offseason opened up, and he gets 80. So that's not where Bellinger wanted to be. And I don't think Boras, if he's gonna take an L with one of these guys, is going to have that be the first one. Because taking an L with Bellinger, in my opinion, signals that he's about to take L's across the board with these guys. Because it signals to other teams that, okay, now he's willing to cave. Because he just did it.
Yes. This is what I have predicted, Gordo. He's going to start taking L's. And, dude, by the way, Cody Bellinger was projected to get in the neighborhood of like long-term and 200 million. He got not even close to that. And what was it? You said 3 years, opt out after 2. So not only is he not getting the term or the money he wants, his options for when he becomes a free agent again are age 30 and 31. That sucks. That's a Boras L. And he had a 900 OPS last year, Cody Bellinger, who we're discussing. And I know he was very bad the years prior, a little bit up and down and everything, but like you didn't even get close to what was projected. So it's nice to see. I don't want to see guys losing money, but it's nice to see like Boras is human. I'm not going to feel bad for a guy who just made $80 million in Cody Bellinger, but to see a Boras client and Boras himself kind of like come down to earth where the rest of us are while spring training is already multiple games in. Good signs. Makes me feel good as a Red Sox fan. I'm not leaving this hill. Montgomery to Boston. It's coming.
So just to revisit our predictions, I think from 2 or 3 episodes ago now at this point, Sammy had 3 years, $69 million. These are projections for Montgomery's contract. Sammy had 3 for $69. Gordo had 5 for $100. I had 5 for $110. Coop had 5 for $140.
It's interesting. And we're not allowed to change these, so that's not. I'm not going to ask you guys to do that because we're not allowed. It's not happening. I would say the leader in the pack right now might be Sammy.
Yeah.
I think I undershot the money because 3 for 69 is $23 million a year, and I feel like if Montgomery's gonna take such a short-term deal like that, he'll want like 25. But I'll stick by it, 3 for 69, and that wasn't a joke about the number. That was my actual guess, 3 for 69. So, hey, it's a lot of money.
And it would be so great, in particular, like if you're going to do a deal like that, assuming it has opt-outs after every year of the deal, so similar to Bellinger, similar to what they did with JD Martinez, something like that. That outcome would be so good for a guy like Montgomery over a guy like Bellinger, Snell, Chapman, because he doesn't have that pick attached. So not only are you not giving up a pick for potentially 1 year of a guy, but now you either succeed, you compete, and he sticks on your roster and you net a draft pick if he leaves, or you don't compete and you trade him and you get guys that way. Like signing Montgomery to a deal like that is so team friendly in a way, which is why I wonder if his deal will look like Bellinger's or if Boras is just going to hold out for the greatest possible deal, knowing that he may not get a chance to capitalize on Monty without the draft pick attached again. It's just something that we're going to have to see play out. But I want to read Boris's quote. He talked to Bob Nightingale with USA Today, and the quotes in there sound incredibly targeted to me. I'm going to read it off, and I'll get your guys' takes on it. But Boras said, "Players that have made commitments to their franchise, they're crying out. They were told by ownership they had a common goal of winning. We're seeing those situations now where the players are serving as the litmus test for the commitment to winning." Then he goes on to say, "When you have players like this who are available, they can dramatically impact the outcome and goals of teams. It's like the trade deadline in July. You can absolutely change the culture in the clubhouse by adding one of these players." And then he goes on to say, "When you talk about a commitment to win, it's hard to sell the city and fans you're doing everything possible to achieve a championship if you don't pursue the talent that's available." So I'm curious, do you guys think as much as I do that quote is directed like right at the Red Sox?
That was Boras?
That was Boras.
Oh my God. I think I love Scott Boras now. Beautiful. I hope he doesn't take any more L's now. That was great. Yeah, I don't think it's targeted at the Red Sox. I think it's targeted at teams like the Red Sox, like Seattle, team that kind of goes all in. What'd you say, Pat? Mets this year. Yeah. Teams like that who are kind of like Milwaukee, 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. So, oh man, no notes from me. That was beautiful. Well said, Scotty B.
And he started the quote off with the thing about players speaking out too. And there's been 3 notable players that spoke out, and they did it in different ways. You obviously had Devers. We talked about that ad nauseum. You had Mike Trout, who says he has been talking to their owner, Artie Moreno, trying to get them to add to the team, add free agents. And then you had Aaron Judge, who didn't really approach it like that. He kind of just said, yeah, like we might have another move coming. He didn't like press them or anything. And I don't think Yankees ownership deserves that because they've spent a bunch of money and they've clearly shown a commitment to win this offseason. But those are the 3 guys he could have been referring to. And I don't think that Scott Boras can be targeting that quote at the Yankees after what they've done.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to think like who could that have been? I think it's more general than anything. And I'm sorry to keep no selling all these quotes, but I think it's just more of a general thing. But if I had to pick a team, I mean, how Red Sox is that? Like you mentioned, Kenley, Devers, like it fits. The shoe fits, wear it. So that said, maybe go sign Montgomery for the Red Sox.
Also, worth noting when he says like guys calling out teams, it could always be his own clients too. Like guys have a mutual agent. Like, have you talked to my team at all about like Montgomery Snow? Like it always could be something like that. But just given the context of what he said and not like conversations I've had or like from what I've heard, it was very like state of the fact, like guys are calling teams out. It's hard not to think about the Red Sox. Like it's everything he said kind of fits that mold. Like it's if the shoe fits.
It's just, yeah, I find it so hard to not read into it. And that doesn't mean that like you should take what we're talking about as we think that the Red Sox are going to do this because Boras is talking about them. I think that that just means what we already know is that the Red Sox have been involved with Montgomery. That's been reported. Like, we have differing opinions as to how much we expect that union to occur, but they have been talking, and clearly Boras is frustrated. I remember when I asked him at the winter meetings if he had how his conversations with the Red Sox went, and he kind of gave me a non-answer, and I was surprised about it because I was like, oh, like the Red Sox are definitely talking to him about his guys and about spending money. Like, he kind of makes it seem like they're not really. And I remember being like, oh, he must have just been giving me a non-answer. But like, no, I think Boras kind of just tells it like it is. And so I think he's frustrated with some of these big market teams holding back the checkbook. And I think the Red Sox are at the forefront of that.
The only thing I disagree with is I don't think Boras tells it like it is. I think Boras tells it how he wants it to be. If that makes sense.
But oftentimes that's how it is. In this case, it's certainly how it is. But you're right. Because like sometimes he's telling you that Blake Snell has a career arch of Randy Johnson, that he's on the same track as Randy Johnson was, which that's a load of shit. That's got to be like,
big fan of hyperbole, that Boras boy. But yeah, man, I'm glad. I honestly didn't know about that quote till you said it, Gordo. I hope that's targeted at the Red Sox.
Hell yeah.
Jesus.
Before we move to enough said, we can't go this whole episode and not talk. We've been asking for months to get any sort of update or news or indication on what the Red Sox offer to Yoshinobu Yamamoto was. And Bob Nightingale kind of just dropped in like the middle of an article, looped the Red Sox in with a bunch of teams, and said that they were among the teams that offered Yoshinobu Yamamoto at least $300 million. And God, you could go so many different directions with this, but I guess I just want to ask, I'll go one by one here. Sammy, do you believe it? Do you believe Bob Nightingale here?
No, I don't. And I don't think Bob Nightingale's lying or anything. I think whoever told him that is full of shit. Why would I believe that they offered it? And, the answer is going to be, well, they said they would go after, like they insinuated they'd go after Yamamoto. And why the hell would I believe that the Red Sox, who won't sign Jordan Montgomery, even though he's begging to be signed by them, why would I believe that they offered Yamamoto $300 million? It just makes no sense. And to the people who are going to say, well, they're not sharing the offer, they don't want to reveal it because they don't want it to affect negotiations with Montgomery. Two things. They revealed the Imanaga offer the second it friggin' came out that he was going to Chicago. They were like, look, we made a good offer. Look at us. We're not that bad. Two, Yamamoto negotiations from 2 months ago is not going to affect Jordan Montgomery today when we know his price is down. The suitors have been narrowed down. It just doesn't make sense. There's no world in which I'll believe that the Red Sox offered $300 million or more to Yamamoto. My guess is that they offered him like 200 something, and then they had incentives that would like escalator it up to 300. And they're technically not lying, but they're bending the truth. So no, I don't believe they offered $300 million to friggin' Yamamoto. No way.
Pat, do you believe him? Do you believe it? 300 mil? Yamamoto, Red Sox, do you believe it?
I do.
Woo-hoo.
I do believe it because just kind of, I was thinking about this earlier. I looked at the show sheet earlier and was thinking about it. If you kind of go on that timeline, when the offseason first started, it was the full throttle. We're getting 2 pitchers. We're going all in, like blah, 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 all this shit. I think they truly, and we kind of talked about this before, like we hope to God that all of their eggs aren't in the Yamamoto basket. I think they were. I think they were so confident that with Yoshida, with a $300 million offer, I think they really truly thought that Yoshinobu Yamamoto was going to pick the Red Sox. And I do think that that's when the script flipped. After Yamamoto signed, that's when all the shit came out about shedding salary, budget. I think Yamamoto was their guy, and they hit a point where we're not just going to pay guys to pay guys. Let's get ready for next offseason. I think that makes sense because everything up until Yamamoto signing, there was no inkling of the Red Sox not being willing to spend. The second he signed is when Kelly's available, Yoshida's available, they're taking calls, Duran's available. They don't want to go over this, they don't want to go over that. Like, that was the point where everything kind of changed. So I do think that they stupidly thought that they were almost a lock to get Yamamoto.
I agree to an extent because I think they opened the offseason with that as their plan. And I think all their eggs were in that basket. And I totally buy the timeline that you said. I just don't think because you got to remember, beginning of the offseason, we had discussions on this podcast. And I remember Sammy was the first to bring it up because the projections for Yamamoto right then were 200 million. And Sammy said smartly, why are we thinking this guy's going to stop at 200 million? He's 25. He's supposed to be this incredible pitcher. Why stop there? Like, why not 250? Why not 275? And they just kept growing and growing and growing. And I think the Red Sox were in it when he was projected to get 200 million. I think they were more than willing to do that. But I can't see this organization that has been so PR conscious over the last 2 decades taking all of this heat about them being cheap, about them not wanting to spend money, about them having a budget, about them shedding payroll, about them wanting to trade all these guys. And then if they offered $300 million to Yamamoto, I would think that would be a really good rebuttal for all of that shit they're taking. And they never pulled that card. Though, like, to be honest with you, the way I see this, I think Bob just kind of put it in. Like, he's been known to, like, tweet out things that, like, he tweeted out a couple of signings that didn't happen. Like, sometimes, like, during the lockout, he was tweeting stuff that, like, I just think he goes with it.
He gets got.
He gets got. That's the right way to put it.
So I agree with what Pat said, the concept of it, but I don't think the offer was 300 million. I think we would have heard about it. Gordo, you just alluded to that. Like I said earlier, they were flaunting the friggin' Imanaga failed offer like they had done something, which was stupid of them. I feel like if they really did offer him 300 million, which would have been respectable, then they would have said, oh, we offered him this much, or they would have leaked it to someone so that we would know. And then that would quell a lot of the complaints. And Gordo, you said they're very PR conscious. I agree they're PR conscious. Do I think they're good at the PR thing? Not fully their fault. They got some loose ends. But a PR conscious team would go, hey, we're getting a really negative public sentiment from the vast majority of the fan base of all ages. If we leak this information that we really did make an honest effort, a college try to sign Yoshinobu Yamamoto for 300 million or more, let's accidentally let that slip to Bob Nightingale, or let's accidentally let that slip to so-and-so. It's been months. I just don't, the timing makes no sense. I don't buy it at all. It just doesn't make sense.
It's been months, and it's not just that it's been months. It's that they have been taking shit on the daily for every one of those days of those months.
That was so nerve-wracking to say into the mic. Tumultuous months. Multiple tumultuous months. Ooh,
God.
Multiple tumultuous months.
You guys ready? You guys ready for some Nuff Said?
Hell yeah.
I'm ready.
I'm gonna jump into mine first because I've got a little nugget that I heard, and it's from someone that I trust, and so obviously FSG owns the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I guess the vibe there is that their coach should be fired or should have been fired a long time ago. I looked at their record; they're kind of mid. I just don't really follow the NHL really beyond the Bruins. So I don't really have that great of a grasp on like what the Penguin situation is. But from what I heard, like this is a guy that probably should have been out of there. And from what I've been told, this coach that they have hasn't been fired because FSG can't afford his buyout.
Mike Sullivan from Marshfield, Mass.
I was gonna say, Gordo, you want to get your mind blown? We'll circle back to that rumor, but you want to get your mind blown?
Please.
It's Charlie McAvoy's father-in-law.
Whoa.
Oh, right.
It was his AHL coach. He married his daughter.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's-
Anyways, that would. I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like there's no way that's true.
Isn't it
Hold on.
weird? Because they
3-year contract extension. They kick in at the end of this year. Oh, it's because they just extended him and it kicks in at the end of the year. That's probably why.
What was the contract?
Or end of last year. Sorry, it's the first year this year.
but it's interesting because you hear things like that and it's like they're crying poor, but at the same time they're investing in the PGA, but at the same time as that they're crying poor with the Red Sox. You listen to the fans at Liverpool, they're crying poor there. I don't know.
We should have a fan gathering of Red Sox, Penguins, and Liverpool fans, and we'll all just get together and just have a vent sesh. The three randomest fan bases you can think of.
Wait,
And we're
that
all
would
just
actually be sick. We should do that. We should totally have like a fan or like a writer from both of those other teams come on and we'll just like get to the bottom of what the hell is going on.
That's actually a good Gordo. That's a good idea. We should get like a Penguins. We should, let's
Dude, my
table
college
that idea.
roommate. My college roommate is like a Penguins super fan. Like, I'll get him on here, man. We'll talk some puck and some soccer, some football.
Yeah. They stole the Bruins color scheme, but that's all good. Yeah, we should do that. We get a Penguin. Like, what's your or a Liverpool person? I don't know anyone who's a Liverpool fan. I can't name a single player.
We'll
on
find
Liverpool.
someone. We'll find someone online.
All right. Shout out the internet.
But I feel like it would have to be an exclusive Liverpool, like someone who's not also a Red Sox fan.
Yes.
Yeah, it can't
Yes.
be a crossover. It needs to be like, we got to get a good Liverpool accent.
And we got to be finding, like, they got to be finding new things out about FSG through us, through our experiences with the Red Sox, just like we'll be finding out things about FSG through their experiences with Liverpool.
Well, they hate FSG. They have the signs,
do.
the FSG out signs with like fire behind it. Like they hate FSG. We're kind of late to the party, mostly because we've seen so much, way more good times than bad, to be totally fair to those guys. But we're in the bad right now. So welcome to the party. Penguins, come join us.
Okay, which one? Sammy, you go next. What do you got? No said.
Mine's really quick. Tim Anderson, former shortstop of the White Sox. He signed a contract, 1 year, $5 million with the Miami Marlins. Just a guy I really want to see succeed. He had a awful 2023, -2 WAR guy, 1 homer, 60 OPS plus, and the defense took a step back. Just really brutal. And on top of that, he got into a little scuffle with Jose Ramirez, got totally dropped by a nice hook. Like, that sucks, man. Not only did he play bad, he got embarrassed, and that's a proud guy. Like, he has to be proud of what he's accomplished. He's had a good career up until this point. He's won a batting title. He's been an all-star. He's been a Silver Slugger winner. So I'm rooting for Tim Anderson. I like him. He's a fiery dude, and I hope he does really well with Miami and cashes in next year when he's a free agent.
Yeah, I mean, I remember early on in this show, I was talking up Tim Anderson as someone I would want to play second base for the Red Sox. I am surprised he got a deal to play shortstop because I think the bat could bounce back, but the glove is not something that historically at this age is all that likely. But good for him. You know, it's obviously like a 1 year stopover, and you hope he bounces back and can get a contract. And if not, I don't know. We'll see. Like, I don't know, because if he doesn't bounce back with the bat, he doesn't really add anything. But I think he will. That's a former batting champion. I like him. Pat, you got
mine? Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it.
This is a little tinfoil hat, like a tinfoil hat moment. So I had a painstaking drive back to Connecticut today. Went home for the weekend, had a lovely time, but I got caught up in a 6-car crash on the highway. 42 minutes of bumper to bumper traffic.
Oh,
What was
fuck,
normally
in it.
Yep. Oh no, God.
Oh
No.
my God, Jesus.
No, caught up in the traffic of. Sorry.
Whew.
So what was normally like a 2-hour and like 15-minute ride became 3 hours and 10 minutes today. So I had plenty of time to think about everything and everything. So I got to thinking. Alex Cora's contract is up at the end of the year. I would hope the Red Sox want him back. And it got me thinking, like, you really have to sell him because if the Dodgers come calling, if really any other team that's better than the Red Sox comes calling, it's going to be hard to say no. What if we made him a little Alex Cora check? A little Alex Bellacora, coach GM.
Ooh, well, Pat, there's no need. The Fenway experience is all he needs. So don't worry. He'll be back. Wait, so you're saying you want to make him like Belichick where he is GM?
Not necessarily like roster control, because that still should be Breslow. But in terms of say in roster construction, like the GM title, kind of like what BOH did under Heim and under Dombrowski.
Okay. Yeah, so he gets a little bit of say.
He gets a seat at the table of the decision making more so than he does now.
The only issue I would see with that is if, like, we've seen him at spring training, he kind of, I don't want to say checked out, but he already looks like, oh, it's going to be a long season, blah, 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 blah. He would have to deal with more of that if he had the double role. That said, we kind of assume that if he were in that role, the roster would be better because we believe in Cora as a baseball mind. So kind of a double-edged sword there. I don't hate the idea. It's interesting. Definitely something I have not yet thought about. I'm sure everyone's going to have an opinion on that. That's a good poll idea. If it means keeping Cora, would you give him a front office role in tandem with being the manager? It's interesting.
I'd do it in a heartbeat. My God, like even if I don't care if he's the GM and he's the number 2 under Breslow and he's up above all of the assistant GMs, or if they promote one of the assistant GMs to GM and Cora just gets to be an assistant GM. I want him to be the manager of the Red Sox, but I would be lying if I said I didn't think that him having a seat at the table, being in Boston throughout the whole offseason, being in meetings with ownership where they discuss the roster construction, they discuss the budget, they discuss what they need. Cora has sort of that FU mentality that this team has been missing for a while. And like, I know that Theo Epstein's back in the fold, but he's not going to be there on the day-to-day. I think that this team has missed the FU mindset, the FU mentality. Larry Lucchino left. Dave Dombrowski immediately stepped in. Like, there was like no time in between. But then as soon as Dombrowski left, that was that.
We got breaking news.
You just saw the same thing I did.
Garrett Cooper is not signing with the Boston Red Sox. He has signed with the Chicago Cubs. Thank fucking God.
Non-roster invite. And this was a guy they wanted to be on the bench.
People were telling me that this guy was a good right-handed option if they don't get Soler. Fuck that. Thank God.
I'm crazy. I'm shocked that he got a non-roster, that he had to sign a non-roster deal. That is unreal.
Crazy.
Dude,
to be
he had like an OPS over 1,000 against lefties last year. Like, he didn't fit this Red Sox team, but
that's it. That's all he does.
That's a lot. That's a big deal.
Rob Refsnyder does that for free. Adam Duvall does that. Actually, Adam Duvall's kind of reverse.
Yeah, he was a reverse guy, but Refsnyder.
Yeah. Steve Pierce did that for $10 a game. He didn't give a shit. Garrett Cooper, I would have been in the mud if that were the right-handed hitting option. Just get a guy. Just get like JD Davis, trade for him. Some guy who can play third, get Devers off his, I don't know.
Non-roster with the Cubs is kind of, if you're going to non-roster yourself, the Cubs might be the best place to do it. I think his name is Bush, the guy they got from the Cubs.
Michael Bush, yeah.
Michael Bush.
Oh, like, he's going to be their starting first baseman.
Yeah. Right. But like, he's a prospect. So like, maybe you make the team on as a bench guy and Michael Bush doesn't perform and now you get to step in the lineup. Whereas with the Red Sox, you sign with the Sox, you're behind Tristan Costas. Like, you're not getting in there.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, you guys are going to think I'm crazy. I might really rather Dahlbeck on the bench than Garrett Cooper. That guy does nothing.
Dude, he hits lefty. Bob doesn't hit any. Come on. He hits
Bob
lefties.
hits- But don't make me stand up for Bob. Come on. No, not
Bob
doing
hits
this.
AAA pitching.
Bob
The
could hit
point
water
is-
from a boat.
I don't, I
Bob
don't
hits
want
AAA pitching, man.
Eric Cooper, and he's not coming here. And I'm very happy about it. I'm sure he's a great guy. I wish him the best in Chicago. I hope he hits several home runs after lefties. Great. Fantastic. Okay, cool. What do you guys think of JD Davis? We trade like a lower tier prospect for JD Davis? Aspiring deal. Plays the corners. Hits lefties
Low-
and righties.
Low tier, I would, because they could use anyone who could spell Devers at third base. I think a right-handed option there.
Yeah, they didn't really have many. So, like, I look at the bench. Catcher is all set. I like Reese as the backup. Middle infield, you got Pablo. That's good. Outfield, you have 47 outfielders on the roster. The one thing they don't really have is a both corners guy.
Urshela would have been perfect, dude.
Urshela would have been great. I think Pablo played a little first base today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So he can handle first. I think if you could play shortstop, you can handle first. I'm sure he could handle third, but I'd kind of like a guy who's like a third baseman. So.
Yeah, and someone that you'd be comfortable with being in there regularly, just because I think Devers getting a fair amount of DH time would be good for him, good for the team.
Yeah, when you get your worst defender off the field, it's always good. So,
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we land this thing?
No, that's it.
No, go Penguins.
Oh wait, I have a prediction.
Okay, let's hear it.
Montgomery and Chapman signed this week. Snell will not.
Ooh, why specifically Snell will not?
I think he really is holding out on the West Coast. He will be a Yankee. That is a fact. He will be a Yankee. But I think he's going to hold out until like the very last minute for maybe the Giants or the Angels to swoop in.
I think he's going to be a Giant.
Do you?
I've changed my opinion on it. I think he's going to be a Giant.
I think Chapman is going to be a Giant.
Yankees, short-term, high AAV for Snell. It's going to suck.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
I
my
would hate
prediction.
that.
I think Monty and Chapman signed this week.
Maybe by the next time we talk, we'll have one of these guys off the board. I think there's a good shot that Bellinger going now is going to signal. I think you're onto something, Pat. I think that things are going to happen sooner rather than later.
Who knows?
Hey,
Maybe we end this today and they sign 5 minutes after we get off.
That happens.
That wasn't like a hint at anything. That was just a genuine hypothetical.
Maybe Cooper gets the market going. Now that Garrett Cooper's off the market, I love that joke on Twitter. I forget who
always
else.
get the market going. You know this.
Oh yeah, wait. Rest in peace for Coop here. By the way,
I didn't appreciate it.
Well,
All the disrespect.
We already got a Cooper.
Coop.
We can have an army of Coopers.
Coop. When Coop,
We can have a
Cooper
Coop
Criswell,
troop.
He was pitching. Cooper Criswell was pitching like either Saturday or Sunday. I forget which one. And
Saturday.
he threw a good pitch, and I was like, "Yeah, attaboy, Coop." And I was like, "Oh,
See how
Ooh.
nice
A
that
little
is?
too real for me.
Yeah. Oh, that one gave me flashbacks.
I
High
think
school with Cooper.
if and when Cooper Criswell gets a start for this team, we're all gathering for it. That's happening.
I'll get a Cooper jersey.
Are you gonna get it? Is it gonna say Criswell, or are you gonna go first name on the back?
No, I'm gonna go first name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to
Yeah, you should
customize
get
it, but
a
it's worth it.
You should get a Cecil Cooper jersey.
What number was he?
Wasn't he the
Well,
Blue Jays manager?
Yeah.
yeah, incredibly old. Yeah, just fun. It says Cooper on the back.
Oh, I grew up playing with him.
Yeah. Because
I'm
you're
old.
like
I'm
50.
I'm
You're
leaning
50.
into the joke so that you guys can't hurt me.
Yeah,
Cecil
we were
Cooper,
texting in the
Brewers
group
legend.
chat today. I was like, wow, I'm just realizing I'm 8 years older than Roman Anthony. Which means Sammy is 28 years older than Roman Anthony.
Hey, at least people are surprised. I still look youthful.
Hell yeah, brother. You're doing
Is
a
Is
great
that just
job.
for men's that you didn't fully rub in?
What?
What? Is that
What?
the little hair dye that you didn't rub in fully?
Yeah, I miss my hair. They actually have a joke about that in the new season of Curb. It's very funny.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm not original.
Stealing
Fucking,
jokes.
fucking Larry David. Gay
Frowned
cat.
upon. Wait, are you talking about this? Did I not shave this well?
No, I was talking about your mustache. I was making a joke that it was gray.
Oh,
Oh.
never had a gray. I'm freaking 29. I'm not even 30. You
Here we go.
I'm gonna like block all of your phone numbers in December this year when I turn.
Oh,
Can
I
you
can't
block
wait.
numbers from a landline?
Oh God.
Yeah, that was good. Fuck you, Pat.
Oh,
All right, get us out of here, Gordo. Fuck this.
yeah. On that note, I'm sorry if you couldn't hear Sammy as well today. He's talking on his landline from 1982, but this has been episode
Operator.
44 of Play Tessie. Before you sign off, remember, click that. Really, before you do it, I swear to God, if you don't do it, I'm going to know and I'm going to come find you. Hit
Pick
that
up your
subscribe
clicker.
button.
Pick up your clicker, find your program, and click on Play Tessie on YouTube. I don't even remember the rest.
Find
Shit.
your finest
okay, here's what
U.S.
you're gonna do.
postal stamps. Lick that envelope, send it into WEEI in Brighton, and let us know that you listen.
Back in
Here's what
my
you're going to
day.
do. You're going to go to your desktop computer and you're going to bend down to the actual computer. You're going to click that on button and you're going to wait a little bit while it boots up. And then you're going to type in your password. It's going to take like 5 minutes to get going, whatever. You're fine. You got all the time in the world. You're going to click up that internet browser, Internet Explorer. You're going to click that button, double click it, and it'll come up. www.youtube.com. And then in the search thing, you type in Play Tessie WEEI. We got a playlist right there for you. Our episodes are all going up there. So remember, hit that thumbs up on that video. Hit that subscribe button to WEEI. Also remember, hit that follow button on all of our podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey app. Hit that subscribe button everywhere. Rate us 5 stars. Leave a comment. But you got to also remember to follow us on socials. At Play Tessie on Twitter. At Play Tessie on Instagram. Coop, you're pointing at something. What am I missing?
I was supposed to be pointing at the subscribe button. Pat's down there, though.
Oh, Pat's down there. Pat, point to the subscribe button.
Instagram. I've
Thank you.
never
Dude,
heard.
yeah, it's right down there. Hit that subscribe button. But for Pat, for Sammy, for Coop, it's Gordo here. This has been Play Tessie episode 44. Thanks for tuning in. Toodaloo.